Callie Jones, welcome to Sovereign Path.
Thank you, Rory. Happy to be here.
Callie Jones is a repeat podcast guest. She was on the old Protege podcast, but so much has happened since then. I remember going to your Senate Foreign Relations hearing. I've seen these on TV, but I'd never been to an actual friend of mine going toe to toe with senators about complex questions of foreign policy. And it was at that point that I was like, she has a real serious job. These people are not playing. They're asking like really intricate, complex questions about foreign policy and the military and all sorts of things. We have these notions of what a diplomat does. A lot of it formed from TV. There's a Netflix show called The Diplomat I love. For everybody watching this, what does a diplomat actually do?
I love that question because I have spent a career also recruiting. And
Mm,
even while recruiting, people don't know what we do. And I think some of it makes it hard for us to sell our mission to the American people. And what we really do is bring balance across the country, I would say globally, for American citizens. So I'll
mm,
put our tasks in a couple of roles. The first is we are always there to protect American citizens. That's why the Diplomatic Corps was founded. Consular work, which
mm,
is protecting American citizens, has always been first. So whether it's negotiating a Brittany Griner situation, getting
mhm.
out of jail, or negotiating for the return, whether it's criminal or not, back to one's home country. So, a lot of protection of citizens across borders. The second, which I think is particularly important, is just building a bilateral relationship so that when
Mm,
something goes wrong or even something goes right, for example, we need minerals from a different
mm.
country. We spend a lot of time negotiating access to another country, and that's mostly borne out by relationships that diplomats build. And that can also be in the defense area, the trade area. So negotiation and building
Mhm.
relationships, I think, is a large part of how I've seen my role and what we do. And then just telling America's story abroad. That
Mhm.
is a really large part of what we do. I want people from Benin all the way to Brussels to understand what Americans are trying to do whenever we do those things. So that's how I would describe our.
You've been in Vietnam. You've had posts in Brazil, Haiti, Botswana. Are you doing the same thing in each country, or as you advance in your career, does the work take on more complexity and, much more different sort of impact and does the functional role change a lot?
So there are two ways to look at this. From every country is different, and our
Mhm.
relationship is different. So
Mm,
because of that, the role will change. In Vietnam, for example, this was almost well, it was over 2 decades ago, and I focus on economic development and our economic relationships with countries. And Vietnam was interested in ascension to the World Trade Organization at the time. And
mm,
so I was there as a very young officer reporting on the economy of Vietnam. If you look at my role in Brazil, it was very different, but still focused on economic issues. One thing that I would say again, at the time, there was a dispute between the United States and Brazil regarding cotton, believe it or not, because we have farm subsidies and whether or not we were giving
mm,
unfair advantage. So focusing on why we were doing what we were doing in the United States. And Haiti, again, very different. Building an economy so that people didn't choose to make a dangerous journey to the United States. So it changes in that every country is different. But then the second part of that question is, does it change with as you grow
mhm,
in the foreign service? And I would say yes. I mean, as a uh, entry-level officer, I'm doing a lot of reporting and giving information to Washington about what is actually going on and meeting with people and asking the same thing like with polling, right? To understand
Mhm.
what is actually happening economically in this country and how will it impact the United States. And when you get further along, you're really negotiating. You're meeting with ministers and trying to ensure that America's best interest is considered at the negotiation table.
When you look back on your decades of career in the Foreign Service, what experiences and stories come to mind that the average person working at the Commerce Department or me as an executive recruiting coach, I'm nowhere near that kind of excitement or real impact. What are some of your favorite stories?
I would say the stories that are most meaningful to me are the ones that are very personal, that have impacted people in a very real way. Of course, I'm very proud of our team in Botswana that helped
Mhm.
both Botswana and Namibia bring one of the largest solar plants to the continent of Africa. That's exciting and it's wonderful and it will have lasting impact. But the stories that honestly are most meaningful to me, I'm thinking about my time when I was in Haiti after the earthquake. I
Mm,
was there both before and after. I spent 4 years in my career there because the people are so warm and I had this bond with them that I saw potential in that country because so much of our textile industry and all those things happened there. But after the earthquake, there was such a desperate need.
mm.
And, you know, medicines were very hard to get at that time. And I remember that a mother and her son presented themselves at the embassy. The son was very sick, and because he had not had his medicines, he was epileptic. And in that time, while he was at the embassy, had a seizure, and we had a physician there who was struggling to understand the needs. I had the Haitian Creole. I translated for the mother. We were able to save that child's life
Wow.
and, Americans do this all the time. We show up after, um, natural disasters on boats with medicines, and we do good things because it's the right thing to do. It's part of who the American people are. And there are stories like this time and again, even during COVID when we delivered vaccines to countries to help save and stave off disease. I think about being in Botswana where the president at the UN General Assembly, and it's poignant because the UN General Assembly is going on right now,
Mhm.
showed up and he said, if I don't have help, my people will die. There will not
Mm,
be a Botswana nation. And it really shifted the dialogue around HIV AIDS. And it's one of George Bush's signature um, program, PEPFAR,
mhm, mhm.
and going out to clinics and seeing what it does and how it changes a person's life. I still have I remember just sitting down with her and saying, I'm just so happy you're here and that you see me as a person and not a number. Um, those are the stories that are most meaningful to me. And it's really how I started my career because I was a Peace Corps volunteer working in health. And so I think that's why life-saving foreign aid is so meaningful and impactful to me personally.
And you're seeing the United States from a vantage point that a lot of Americans don't see the United States, which is, I mean, I know that there's, foreign aid for decades that's been going to other countries, but I don't see the pallets being delivered. I don't see the troops helping in a natural disaster. You are there on the ground when that happens. How does that change? How has it changed how you see American foreign policy when it's activated in that way?
I think, and this is heavily criticized now, rightly or wrongly, I view the world more globally.
Mhm,
I understand American citizens and borders and boundaries, but I also believe in that there's a global citizenry
mhm,
and we are bound to each other by so
mhm,
many things. And part of it is if you read reporting about what will be most dangerous to the United States
mhm,
over the next coming decade, it's all things that we can't solve on our own. And that
mm.
is water shortage, climate change, which forces people to move from lands,
Yep.
disease.
Mhm,
So I think knowing and understanding that our problems are global problems is really easy for me to see when I travel because they are suffering the same things globally. But also, I think, Rory, the one thing that really stands out for me when I think about suffering and how we can alleviate it here is so much about what I see, whether I am like in Mumbai or Port-au-Prince, is that every mother wants to send their child to have a better education.
mm.
Every family wants to be able to feed their children. Laughter is the same. I say joy is the same and sadness is the same, and
Mm,
that has been the most impactful part of my career is understanding that joy and sadness are universal emotions, and they are derived from a lot of the same thing of wanting to have your child have a better life. I don't think that's uniquely American. I think it is across the board. So I understand Americans because I have understood those emotions globally.
You are in a somewhat different career profile now, and I wanna talk about the thread running through your career in the Foreign Service
Mhm.
and your career in the art world. And just to remind everyone, Callie is somebody with a JD, Master's in Public Health, an undergrad from Howard, HU, you know,
Mhm.
and decades in the Foreign Service. And now you're an art dealer. Am I characterizing that right? Is that what you call yourself in the morning? An art dealer, art
I would
broker,
I would
curator?
not call my
What do you call
I
it?
wouldn't say dealer. Dealer is more of a person who's really selling
Mhm.
art. I consider myself more of an advisor, consultant, and here's why.
Advisor consultant.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm
Break it down.
shifting to help collectors acquire, grow, curate their collections. And that's particularly important to me because you the way in which you view your culture,
Hmm.
um, is the story that you tell someone else about who you are. And
Hmm.
that's what diplomats do all the time. We tell the story of America to other people. And so for me, the shift is I was telling the story of who America was to a foreign audience. And art is the story you tell to people who come into your home, right? Like when you look at, I think about Giants and what Alicia Keys and Swizz Beatz are doing. They
Mhm.
always talk about the story of giants and who Black people are. They are giants. That is the story they're telling through their collection. And we all tell stories through the things that we have in our home.
Mhm. Tell me about art as investment, because I think a lot of people think that art is out of their reach. They see artworks being sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. They say, I'll never be able to buy that. I know from talking to you and other friends that it is within reach for a lot of us. I mean, if you're going to a Beyonce concert, you have enough money to
That's right.
buy an investment grade piece of art. So, talk to me about how the average person can start getting involved in art as an investment vehicle.
Well, the headlines want you to see the jaw-dropping millions of
Hmm.
dollars, um, niche paintings because
Hmm.
that gets people to click and interest. But I would say that so my parents collected. They are the ones
Mhm.
who started the conversation around art for me and my family. And it was simple things of when you're traveling, you pick up a painting that reminds you of a place that's $200,
Mhm.
right? But it tells a story of that experience that you have. And there are so many young artists that are out there in our community who are
Mhm.
telling the story of Black America, and their price points are not millions of dollars, not even thousands of dollars. The
Mhm.
entry
Mhm.
to the art market is a Beyoncé ticket. I wanna use that because I really
Right.
want it to mean something for people,
Right.
and that experience of her concert is meaningful, but also that piece of art that you collect for $1,000
Mhm.
will also grow in terms of its value over time. So, the one thing that's important, I wouldn't and so there are a couple of kind of ways to buy art. There are art lovers, right? They buy it
Mhm.
for the sake like, they see it, they love it, it's meaningful to them. There's a different category, and it's you're purely buying it for investment, and there are people who buy art, they put it in a crate, they store it, and then they take
Mm.
it out, they sell it when it 3 years later, speculation. I I don't necessarily know if I'm advising the second category because I'm
Mhm.
an art lover and I wanna help people tell their unique stories through art, so art should be seen in my view. But the idea of seeing someone, and I would say go into galleries. I know that their galleries have this mystique, but they want you in there. They're offering a service. They really want you in there, and they
Mhm.
can start to teach you about how to collect art. So the first step for me really is just go into an art gallery,
Mhm.
improve what we call a connoisseurship, just go and
Mhm.
stare at things. Go to museums and look at things and rule out things and rule in things. That's really where you start as a collector, and you don't have to start buying something that's at an extraordinary price point. You can
Yes.
start with things that are, $500,
Mhm.
$600, and even prints. Prints are valuable.
Mhm.
You have to do your study with prints, but start with a print.
Absolutely. My own journey with art, I came into it from a variety of angles. The first one was really I gotta decorate a house. So I got all these bare walls,
Mhm.
and I used to just pick up art like the firm I worked at was moving from a traditional decor to this modern decor, and they were like, "Who wants to buy the art?" And I was like, "We'll buy." And it was not valuable art, but the frames were gorgeous, and the scenes were, vineyards and pastoral scenes. I was like, "Okay, it's better than a blank wall."
Yeah.
So I have all this art, including these random bird sketchings. I was like, why do I have these? Oh, Russell Reynolds was selling the art and I bought it. And then I realized, okay, that's not right. So I kept like a few of those. Then we started traveling. I went to Brazil. I bought art off the street. I bought student art from a small gallery. You're talking like 40, 50, $100 max. I came
Yeah.
back with this art from Brazil. Reminds us of our trip to Brazil. And then everywhere we would go, we would buy more art. South Africa. I remember negotiating with the artist. Shout out to Gab Duru in Johannesburg, who I negotiated an hour to get $10 off a $300 piece of artwork, and I brought that home. That reminds me of that wonderful trip we took to South Africa. And then we got some investment grade art. You helped us with one piece, and then I got a piece from Ellie Rogers. We sourced on our own, a young artist. A pro tip someone told me. I said, "How do you know an artist is going to blow up and be successful?" And this friend of mine, Lewis Long, who you know, said
Yes.
one way is to buy art from people who are in college or who are recent grads from prestigious art schools. You don't
Mhm.
know what great art is, but the people that are admitting them to that art program know what great talent and great art is, and they are admitting them in a competitive process. Just like you're a better pre-med student or you're a better pre-law student based on your SAT, they have to submit a portfolio. They are judging them and saying, this person's got some talent. So
Yeah.
Ellie Rogers had gone to Columbia and she produces beautiful digital art. So we have some art from Ellie Rogers, and some of it is investment grade. Some of it is just, I went to the Paris Noir show at the Pompidou with my sister, and I bought just postcards of some of the art that I really
Yeah.
liked. My wife
That's
is like,
great.
we don't have any red art in the house. So I bought 3 small prints that we can put in a corner somewhere where we have the color she wants and
Yeah.
the scheme she wants. So you don't have to have, number one, a house full of original art. You can
Right.
have it be from places that you visited, postcards, and frame them nicely. And number two, make a habit or a cadence of maybe every couple of years investing in a piece of art. And what's going to happen? You're going to have over 15, 20 years a really impressive art collection that is going to also be valuable assets for you. So just a pro tip from some of the experiences I've had and the road I'm on. Any other tips, Callie, you would have about how to collect art over a lifetime
Yeah.
or
So
over a
I
career?
love everything that you said. I had to write down a couple of things because there's so, we get in this role and I'm like, oh, there's so much I have to say. So
Mhm.
first, picking up art while you were traveling is how I started my collection. And
Mm.
I'm a diplomat and, you know, the artists, for example, behind me, these are Haitian and Indonesian paintings. And
Wow.
interestingly enough, they are at the time I picked them because I love them. And it ended up being that the Haitian artist in particular was later commissioned to do a US stamp, right? So I wasn't interested in her future. I was interested in looking at the works that she had now.
Mhm.
And the lovely thing about art is that it evokes a memory. And
Yep.
so I would, even if you are traveling to Miami Beach or New York, you should get something.
Mhm.
And in order to understand what your eye likes and will it be valuable? I mean, and there's 2 reasons to buy art, because you love it, and that's always the first thing that you want to do. You wanna buy something that you like, and then the
Mhm.
second, if you are interested in investment and you want to build that legacy for your children, for your family, or later on you want to sell it to care for yourself,
Mhm.
um, I think, uh you're right in that the schools have done the hard work of narrowing down talent, but
Mhm.
galleries also do that. There are lots
Mhm.
of galleries that
That's a
focus
good point.
on young talent, because they want young collectors to also be there. So I would say if you're starting your collection and you don't know where to start, the first thing I would do is read. I would get a lot of books
Mm.
and flip through books. They're great books on collecting African American art and see what you really like. Then
Mhm.
go on to auction sites and see
Mhm.
what's selling, and that will share with you kind of like the mediums and the genres that are doing well and that may interest you, and that's a secondary market that you can get into. So beyond reading and constantly looking at auction sites, go into galleries and ask.
Mhm.
That I mean, my mother
Mhm.
owns a gallery in New Orleans, and part of her mission is education.
Mhm.
We're very serious about educating people about Black art. And so, depending on the gallery, and if the gallery's not willing to educate you, that's not the gallery you wanna be shopping in. So,
You
go
you
in,
bring up a you
ask
bring up
questions.
a you bring up a couple of points I just wanna flag
Mhm,
because I think they're really, really important. And that is, this is why you go to museums. This is
mhm.
why you go to museums. You can go to museums and say, I'm bored on a rainy Saturday and I'm in Madrid and I don't want to walk outside. And so I'll go to this museum that's nice. But go in it and ask yourself, what do I like? Like, what do I like? And you might find no matter what the genre or what the focus of the museum, that you're going to find something you like and you'll start seeing some themes. I remember asking you, I said, Callie, I'm interested in getting into art. And you said, well, what do you like? I don't know. And then you pointed me to a book and you said, hey, look at this, look through these pieces of art. And it reminded me of one of the most profound, simplistic teaching moments. I was bought an apartment
Mhm.
and I had to decorate it. My wife had to decorate, and I was like, what do we decorate it with? Like, we can't bring our old furniture. It's kind of a vacation house. What do we do? And I read a book about design, and it said, think about how you decorate your apartment based on how you dress. Like,
Yeah.
how you dress has an aesthetic vibe. And I was like, well, I'm kind of like aggressively preppy, polo, J.
Oh, that's
Crew.
not what I was gonna say. You don't
Sometimes
want
I'm
to
wearing all
bohemian?
polo.
No,
No, not bohemian. Aggressively
no, I know.
preppy. Carlton with the Neiman Marcus charge card, basically, is my style. And so they said, your house will look like that, right? You're not going to be preppy in your clothing and be super edgy and modern in
That's
your
right.
design. And what I found with art is it's similar to my perspective on like literature and film, that I like films and art about Black joy
Okay.
and Black nostalgia, like
Mhm.
storytelling about the past. I look at all the art that I have. They have people. They're about families. They're about togetherness. They are about centering an ancestor. All of it is I don't have a lot of just random abstract stuff. It's all telling a story that's around family and joy and nostalgia. Those are also the kind of movies I like
Right.
watching. That's also the kind of literature I like reading. So you have these clues, I think, in your own life that can help guide you, that it's not, look, there's millions of pieces of art. There's millions of pieces of Black art. Start with the things that artistically guide you and inspire you, and then test that with books, test that with galleries. I went to the Paris Noir exhibit and I took pictures. I really like that. Beaufort Delaney. Who knew? I love Beaufort Delaney. I can't afford Beaufort. Am I pronouncing his name right?
Yeah, well, yes.
I
I was
can't.
I
Uh-oh.
that was a piece of art that just fell. Maybe it
What?
was offended. It's
Maybe
fine.
I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, and the ancestors have spoken. If you need to get that, because I know that's
No,
not,
no. The
a
glass
Jimi
didn't
Hendrix
break.
poster you got from Spencer's over there.
The glass didn't break, so I
Uh-oh.
think we're okay.
On Sovereign Path, we summon the ancestors.
We
So
did.
let me just say, if I am mispronouncing his name, Mr. Delaney, I love your artwork.
Delaney is
Rest in
correct.
peace. He's incredible. I didn't know that. He's also James Baldwin's godfather, and
Oh,
that was sort of his mentor. And he
okay.
cared for him. He cared for Mr. Delaney till his death. So you have clues. You can
Yeah,
fine and
that's
refine
true.
your aesthetic eye a bit.
And there's schools of art, right? So if you
Hmm.
find something that you like, people are trained by others and they are in these schools of art. So you can stay within that school because I think that it is fair to say that, you know, you carry your aesthetic throughout or your interest in terms of artistic interest. You're not going to necessarily I'm trying to think of a way to go from, like, science fiction to something like pictures of apples and pears. That's probably not going to be the thing that most speaks to you.
That's
Probably
right.
some abstract expressionism or something, so
Yeah.
you're
No, I
right.
think that's right. All right. As we wrap up, career advice. What
Okay.
is the career advice as the OG you would give to the next generation? What piece of wisdom, career advice, or insight that would have been really helpful to you in the middle part of your career?
Career advice. It's interesting because I careers have different phases, right? And I'm
Uh-huh.
in a transition phase.
Hmm.
And advice that I would give someone who is in place and
Hmm.
moving to leadership is a little bit different than the advice that I would give to someone in a pivot.
Mm,
But what I would say in general, because I'm in a pivot, and so that's where I focus is, and this won't be new, is frustrating, exciting, scary that a pivot is. It's where you start to really flex your muscle to grow.
mhm,
Um, I had not anticipated this particular pivot,
mhm,
but one thing we didn't talk about is, I mean, I watched a mother who went from being a physician
mhm.
to a forced pivot to art, but it was something that she loved and that she's doing well in. And I would say that I am in the middle of a growth spurt,
Mhm. Mhm.
going from one career to the next. And so I guess the career advice that I would give as you grow in leadership and as you take maybe transitions is know that um I don't know, Roy, it's so hard. I mean, I keep focusing on resiliency and how key it is
Resiliency is its own thing. It's its
to
own
to
thing.
do, and I don't know how to articulate that, but if I could say anything to people about careers is find the community that builds you so that you maintain your resiliency in the struggles through your career as you make it through leadership positions and when you find yourself in a transition space.
You don't need resiliency until you need it. You don't pack resiliency
Yeah.
on your career journey. You don't. I mean, how many times do you pack an umbrella? How many
Yes.
times on a trip do you say, I will need an umbrella? You think it's either not going to rain that hard, or I'll get one wherever I am. And then what happens? It rains. You're like, I should have packed an umbrella. I want to do a little bit more about your mother because I think that is critical. And I want to narrate it. If I get it wrong, correct me. But I
Okay.
think I think I'm narrating it from my perspective, observing it in real time. So your mother was a doctor, an OBGYN. She
Correct.
got into a car accident. She injured her hand. She could no longer deliver babies. Is that correct?
So it wasn't a car accident, but it was an accident.
It
So
was
we'll
an accident. Okay. It
yes.
was an
Mhm.
accident and she couldn't deliver babies. But she was a budding art collector and shifted to becoming a real serious art collector as the centerpiece of her career.
Correct.
Now, you've got two sisters and a brother, and your mother has successfully run one of, if not the most noted Black art gallery in the United States. Now you have an opportunity to pivot from the foreign service into the art gallery world. It's not like your mother has, again, posters of, rap stars in, it's not Spencer's. This is a serious art gallery. Serious
Yes.
collectors come to your mother's art gallery to buy serious art. And now it has provided a pivot for you. You can see where I'm going with this. If your mother retires as an OBGYN,
Mhm.
there is no platform, there is no inheritance of a career that you can just slide into in a very meaningful, significant, commercially viable way. It's just my mom retired. Maybe she got some money. Maybe I can take that and I can retire too, or whatever. But instead, you've got legacy that you can just pivot right into. And in our own careers, as we're making these pivots, we often think about them as, well, this is going to help me. We don't think about how it's going to help people around us, how it's
This
going
is
to
true.
inspire people adjacent to us, let alone possibly inspire people in the next generation. What happened to your mother is now paying dividends for you 30, 40 years later. And that's incredible. So your point about resilience is something you should always pack on your career journey because when you use it, it's going to make the next miles and segments of your journey that much easier. as you go along on your sovereign path. That's why I call the show, that's why I call my coaching model Sovereign Path, because there are all these things we're doing that are getting us closer, that are getting us sustained on our path, that are keeping us on our path, that are keeping us focused on our path, or that get us back on our path. And what an amazing legacy your mother has left for you, and what an amazing legacy in real time you are leaving for others around you.
That is beautifully said. You got it right. You got her story and my story correct.
I've been listening. I've
You
been
have
listening.
been. Yep.
I've been listening. Callie Jones, thank you so much for stopping by Sovereign Path and sharing your amazing career story and pivot with our listeners.
Roy, thank you so much for having me. I absolutely loved having our conversation. Thanks.